Wednesday afternoon to you. It's 4 o'clock time for Sports4CLE. Thanks for joining us. Hope you're having a good afternoon. Last week, Mary Kay Cabot was telling us that Hall of Famer Joe Thomas was kind of counseling Joe Bitonio relative to his return. And it appears that Joel has listened. Mary Kay, hearing that Joel Bitonio will in fact return to the Browns for his 12th season. So that eliminates one concern on the offensive line. It appears that guard Joel Bitonio returning for his 12th season with the Browns. Bucky Brooks, NFL.com, talking about the quarterbacks that are at the top of this draft. Cam Ward, Shedeur Sanders. Here's what Brooks says will appeal to teams about Cam Ward as a quarterback and what will appeal to teams about Shedeur Sanders as a quarterback.
I think it's really easy to pick Cam over Shedeur if we're doing the evaluation on the tools. His tools are more impressive than Shedeur Sanders. He has a bigger arm. You see the wild throws more than you see Shedeur, and you see the athleticism that Shedeur doesn't have. To me, Shedeur is more of a pass-first point guard where he's going to be very dependent upon what is around him. He doesn't have the creativity to be able to make things happen if it all breaks down. To me, though, I think you can look at Shedeur and say that he can be a starting quarterback in this league. Cam Ward is going to be really appealing for people who value traits and tools and those things. I think Shedeur is a better management player in terms of running the offense and doing those things. But we're all chasing, I would say, the elites. Everyone is chasing the Pat Mahomes, the Lamar Jacksons, the Josh Allens, and those things. And if you are a team and you're chasing those guys, you're going to be more apt to value tools over the guy who is the better player right now.
And all those guys are in the AFC where the Browns play, so it'll be interesting to see. Conventional wisdom says Browns draft a quarterback, sign a veteran or two, and maybe even draft a second one. Adam Schefter of ESPN, their NFL insider, talking about an idea he has for the Browns relative to a veteran quarterback.
How about Joe Flacco, who's already led the Cleveland Browns to the playoffs 2 years ago? And there were people in the organization that wanted to keep him. He wanted to play. They let him go because there was some division there. He went to Indianapolis, went fine. But Joe Flacco back to Cleveland could be the perfect bridge quarterback for when Cleveland drafts a quarterback. I expect to be high. So you have Flacco as the potential starter or the rookie if he's ready. Flacco's a great guy to have in the locker room. I think Joe Flacco could be in play in Cleveland. So if we give Daniel Jones to Indianapolis and Joe Flacco to the Cleveland Browns and Sam Darnold back to the Minnesota Vikings, Tennessee Titans have the option of drafting one. The Giants have the option of drafting one. The Browns, we think, are going to be in the market to draft one. There's really only two quarterbacks that are going to go high, so all three of those teams are not going to get one. But you begin to get an idea of how these quarterbacks are going to shake out here in the coming weeks.
And there will be a lot of quarterback movement without question. ESPN's national NFL analyst, Jeremy Fowler, talking about the Browns quarterback search and what he's heard.
Talking to people with the Browns and even, catching Kevin Stefanski as he was walking out, he was like, look, we're not in a position to overlook any quarterback. I mean, we have to really scour the earth for quarterback help. Like, that's just kind of where they are right now. And so that usually leads to that kind of decision. My sense coming out of the combine is that they like both quarterbacks, Cam Ward and Shedeur Sanders. I don't know how they have them ordered right now, but there is an appreciation there for what Sanders can do and kind of having a computer mind where he can process things quickly and make decisions. Like I do think there's some love there for that there. So we'll see how that. I don't know what that means as far as positioning. Is too rich for Sanders, maybe. So we'll see how that all shakes out. But maybe it's possible the Browns could even trade back and still get a quarterback.
Yeah, and again, if they like Sanders that much, they likely will take him at 2 if Cam Ward is gone. Again, we'll have all those answers soon. There is another veteran quarterback that will be on the market, as the Raiders have informed Gardner Minshew. They will release him when the league year begins Wednesday. He has 46 starts, still only 28 years old, will become an experienced option for teams that are in need of a quarterback. Also around the league, it's that time of year. Two-time Pro Bowler DK Metcalf has requested a trade, and the Seahawks have agreed to let him explore his options days before free agency. 27-year-old Metcalf immediately becomes one of the top wide receivers available. More Seattle Seahawks wide receiver news. They are releasing all-time franchise great Tyler Lockett, who's piled up over 8,500 receiving yards and 61 touchdowns in 10 seasons in Seattle. Seahawks are releasing him rather than paying him the $17 million he is owed for the season, which would include a $5.3 million roster bonus March 16th. More wide receivers who will become available. The Jaguars plan to release Christian Kirk, according to Adam Schefter. That's the guy the Browns had some interest in free agency a bit ago. The Saints have released running back Jamal Williams, according to Adam Schefter as well. So Browns in the market for a running back. There's a veteran who had successful season with the Lions a couple of years ago. This one is interesting for the Browns relative to the Myles Garrett market. The Raiders are signing Pro Bowl defensive end Max Crosby, a 3-year, $106.5 million extension that will include $91.5 million guaranteed, makes him the highest paid non-quarterback in NFL history. It's the third time in 4 years the Raiders have addressed the contract of Max Crosby. So there's a baseline deal for Myles Garrett relative to any type of extension. Teams were notified that the 49ers will, in fact, be releasing Javon Hargrave. It'll be a post-June 1st release. He is healthy, coming off a triceps injury. He would be available to sign March 12th, which is the start of the new league year. And the Chiefs likely to re-sign, are unlikely, rather, to re-sign veteran safety Justin Reed, per Nate Taylor of The Athletic. And again, Browns in the market for a safety, so Justin Reed will be out there. Last time they went free agency and signed a Chiefs safety, that would be Juan Thornhill. That did not end well. All right, let's turn our attention to the Cavaliers. Cavs last night trying to extend their winning streak to 11 games, taking on the Chicago Bulls. Tell me if you've heard this. Cavs down double digits in the second quarter. Ty Jerome continues to play really well. Hits the three-pointer. He had 16 points. Darius Garland going to work. Little crossover, gets him some space. He knocks it down. Garland this time a little bit further out. Three-pointer around the screen. Garland 19 points, 7 assists on the night. Donovan Mitchell gets the offensive rebound here. And then he'll put it down. He had a team high, 28 points. In transition, take a look at this one. Max Strus will find, the trailer. And Jared Allen gets the basket and actually the layup. We're going to go back to Allen, and this time he'll get the and one. 25 points, 17 rebounds for Jared Allen. Cavs come back from a big deficit again. Kenny Atkinson on what he saw in the win over the Bulls.
We have to be careful, right? I mean, this league's too hard, and you know, we obviously had a great fourth quarter, but we for 3 quarters we were sleepwalking. Energy wasn't great. Defense wasn't great. Offense, we weren't making shots, and Serena, that's a challenge for us. When we don't make shots, are we going to defend? And I didn't feel like we did that for 3 quarters. I think Jared Allen woke us up. We subbed him in with 7 minutes, 7:50 or something, and then we went on that run. He protected the rim twice, got a steal, and then DG started and Don started hitting him in the pocket. So he was really the key. And then Javonte, obviously, great contribution off the bench.
Javonte Green with his first noticeable minutes and did play well. But again, points to Kenny Atkinson pointing out the Cavs have fallen behind double digits the last 3 times. Have come back to win, but you want to address that before you get to the playoffs. Guardians with a day off in Arizona today. They won their third game of the exhibition season yesterday against the Angels, and Gavin Williams looked really good. Second appearance, topped out at over 98 miles an hour. Looks like he lost some weight and came to Arizona in great shape. 6 strikeouts yesterday. Spring training totals, he's pitched 4 1/3 in a couple of starts, 3 hits, 1 earned run, 1 walk, 9 strikeouts, and 2.08 ERA, and he has been outstanding in his 2 starts, looking like he could take that step that the Guardians are looking for him to take. Bo Naylor at the plate, coming through. An RBI single out into right field. A good sign. The catcher's starting to hit. And this is a really good sign. John Kenzie Noel, and you like when he does that. That one is not coming back. Noel's first home run of the spring, and the Guardians get a much-needed win in exhibition play, Cactus League play, over the Angels. Again, just their third win of the spring. Stephen Vogt, second year as manager of the Guardians, taking nothing for granted. They played really well last year, but he knows last year's success doesn't mean anything once the regular season starts this year.
I know what it's supposed to look like. Start to finish, now I know what it feels like, what it looks like, where we want to get to. But now it's how do you push? How do you continue to move the needle? How do we get one step better every single day? And our players have set the bar very high. And so how do we continue to push that while also understanding that we're ramping up for a 7-month season and we can't hit the gas pedal full go, but our guys are working extremely hard and it's been a lot of fun. I think, one of the things that we've really tried to erase is the idea that, big leaguers just figure it out. No, you continue to develop. You don't stick around in the big leagues because you've figured it out in year 1 or 2. Jose Ramirez improved his defense tenfold last year in his 10th season, 11th season, whatever it was. They continue to get better. Jose and Carlos both. I mean, Carlos won his first Gold Glove last year. So when you have 2 veteran players that have been in the league over 10 years that want to get better every single day, if you're a young player watching that, you have to keep up. And that's what great teammates do, is they pull the people up to their left and right. And to have 2 guys on the corner of the infield that do that better than most in the league, I feel really fortunate to have those guys.
And the Guardians are going to need Ramirez and Santana to kind of lead the way again with Stephen Kwan for some of the young guys. Guardians still looking for some offense, and we'll need that heading into the season. We're going to step aside, take a quick time out. We turn our attention to the Browns. Fred Greetham, senior analyst for the Orange and Brown Report, straight ahead. Stay with us on Sports4CLE.
With the new Monopoly Bonus Spectacular family of scratch-offs from the Ohio Lottery, you can uncover a spectacular amount of winnings. With 5 games from $1 to 20, multipliers from 5 times to 100 times, over $113 million in total cash prizes and chance bonuses. What you find under a greenhouse could change everything.
We turn our attention to the Browns. New league year starts next week. We'll hear all the free agency and trade talk early part of the week, and then it can be made official later in the week. Diana Rossini with her read and what she's hearing with the Myles Garrett situation with the Browns.
Just 2 sides that really want different things. And that's where we're at this moment, where the Browns are very vocal and very public about they are not moving him. Teams from the AFC, teams from the NFC, it does not matter. Teams from the XFL have called. Everyone has called the Browns. And they are being told essentially the same thing, which is we're not moving him for now. And I do think the for now part is interesting. Look, I don't want to, overstate what that could be, but I think Andrew Berry is smart enough to know if Myles Garrett is going to stand this tall in this demand, and after meeting with ownership, because he sat down with Jimmy Haslam and talked it out and said, I don't agree with the plan. I don't agree with the future of this Cleveland Browns team. So everyone is very, they're all on the same page in terms of, yeah, he doesn't want to be here. This isn't going to work. It's just they don't want to let him go, not a player of this caliber. So if there's going to be movement, let's say at some point here they say, all right, we're not going to deal with all the drama of this. I can tell you people around the league are assuming if this does start to move, it's going to move right before the draft.
So welcome in Fred Greetham, senior analyst for the Orange and Brown Report. And I keep coming back to $36 million dead cap hit, which is why I don't think it can move before the draft.
Well, it's not even before the draft. It's June 1st. So that's when basically free agency and the draft are all over. All you're going to be getting is assets as far as draft picks for the 2026 draft. You really wouldn't get any help for the 25 season. Besides, you're probably going to have to release, if you don't have to release players or restructure players just to get under it with the 36 million dead cap, you're not going to be able to sign anybody in free agency. So if that's the plan, you almost have to do that before you even enter free agency, because next Monday, basically, you start making commitments to players, and that's where it goes. And, I know that a lot of people think the draft, that would be the natural point. But if you don't get draft picks for this year and you end up deciding to trade him when the cap hit goes down a little in June, all you really can legitimately do to help your team at that point is to pick up player for player, maybe get a couple starters above average, or obviously nobody's, to the caliber of Garrett. And so that's where that's why this is a standstill. And she said in her video, for now, unless Andrew Barry said that to her, that's wiggle room. I don't know if, an agent or somebody else is saying that, but after you were there with Andrew Barry over in Indianapolis, is that he sounds pretty firm to me.
Yeah.
And I keep coming back beside the cap. How does this make the team better?
Right.
He has no leverage. Everybody wants to win a Super Bowl and all that kind of stuff. But you just saw DK Metcalf ask for a trade today. Guys do this a lot. It seems to be the new thing. He signed a contract 2 more years. So if he doesn't play, he loses 2 years of his prime, as well as whatever he has left, 100 million or 50 million on his contract. So it's hard for me to believe that he would just say, I'm just sitting at home until you trade me.
So this is from NFL Trade Rumors. One big question for every team. They did all 32 for the Browns. Can this Browns regime be honest with itself? One of the most corrosive aspects of the Watson trade was how even after multiple seasons of poor play, the Browns refused to embrace any sort of accountability. Any acknowledgement that Watson needed to play better was always paired and redirected with the offense as a whole playing better around him. Benching the $230 million man was never a public consideration, even when it became clear the Browns needed to try something. Instead, the team just buried its head in the sand until Watson's injuries removed him from the lineup. That's in print. I don't have this from any source whatsoever. I think that whole situation with Watson, if I was one of the players, it would have pissed me off. And I think that might be one of the things that pissed Myles Garrett off.
Yeah, I don't agree with everything in that statement. I agreed with this year, this past year, 2024, that they did bury themselves heads in the sand and let the team get to 1-6, all with Watson. And then he gets hurt. That kind of took it out of their hands. I don't know how much longer he would have continued being the starting quarterback, but I think they would have kept trotting him out there. But for Kevin Stefanski every week to say he gives us the best chance to win, when the players saw it, everybody saw it. The years before that,
right.
Coming into this season, he was healthy, and you were expected him to step to the next level. The first year, he was suspended 11 games, rust and all that. The next year, was he ends up having the shoulder injury and missed 11 games. And then last year, obviously, he missed the final, 10 games, but he was playing completely horrible those first 7 games last year. He wasn't playing like that even in the second year before he got hurt. So, that's where this past year, yes, I think they did by continually not taking him out. When you had Winston, at least try him. All you needed was a spark. You could have had a drive or two and won a couple more games, but we'll never know how long they would have stayed with him if he would have not got hurt.
Yep, and I'm with you. We've talked about it, but I think, and when he was saying that after 4 and 5 losses, my question on this show was, how are you selling this to the locker room? And I think the answer was the locker room wasn't buying it. I know you have an ongoing series, so let's promote it. 6 steps to putting the Browns back on the road to the playoffs in 2025. And we've got 2 of the 6. So sign a starting safety, draft or sign a running back. Take us through kind of the thought process there.
Well, I've done this the last few years. This is a little different because they're coming off 3-14. And, I didn't say to get back to the playoffs necessarily. I said to get back on the road to the playoffs. I feel like I started with safety because 2 of their top 3 are gone. One retired, Rodney McLeod, and Juan Thornhill was released. You have Grant Delpit. He's a solid player, but he really isn't a difference maker. In free agency, Andrew Berry has focused on safety. I can't say that he hit home runs on John Johnson or Juan Thornhill, paid big money. But I think they need somebody to be a playmaker. They brought in Thornhill. He was supposed to be a ball hawking playmaker. He had no interceptions in his 2 years. He had trouble staying on the field. He missed 6 games both years with a calf injury. But they need somebody, like a Kyle Hamilton or somebody that can make plays, game-changing plays at safety. The team only had 4 interceptions last year. And so I think the quickest way is to get a safety in free agency. You might have to pay him a little more, and that's what but he's done that in the past. You can draft one as well, but if you don't add a top-of-the-line safety, by default, Ronnie Hickman's going to be your starter opposite Grant Delpit. Hickman played well, but I don't think he's ready to be anointed as the playmaking safety at the end. And then today we had number 5. It was on running backs. I mean, Nick Chubb only needs 400 yards to be number 2 all time in Browns history behind Jim Brown and past Leroy Kelly. I can't hardly believe they're just going to let him go. I have to think, as close as he is to the Browns, that they have talked to him saying, go out and test the market, see what offers you get, and let us match it or have a chance. Maybe they don't. I mean, it's being depicted in the media that they just said goodbye, good luck. I don't think that's it at all. But on the other side, you cannot go into this offseason assuming that he's going to be back to the old Nick Chubb. And Jerome Ford's nice. He might be a decent second back or even a third back. But I think you have to infuse new life. And where I do that is in the NFL draft. You got 11 picks. This is one of the deepest classes in running backs. I like Travion Henderson. I like Quinshon Judkins. I like Sampson. I like Allen. There are draft picks all over the place that you could get one in the 3rd, 4th, 5th round that I think could come in, and if not be your number 1, could be at least your number 2. And if you have one of those guys to go with Jerome Ford and Nick Chubb, I think you have a strong running back room. And if Chubb comes back to if anybody can come back, it'd be him. You got a dynamic room for this year and the future with the new guy coming in.
So Jeremy Fowler, ESPN's national NFL analyst, on some of the names he's hearing relative to veteran quarterbacks that the Browns are looking at.
I've heard there's a player like Carson Wentz is on their radar, who I know wouldn't be the sexiest name right now, but, he's done a good amount in this league and won't be too costly. Daniel Jones a little bit. There's some buzz about Daniel Jones coming out of the combine. Cousins, it's funny. I do think he would be in play if he's available. I was surprised at how many people I talked to with teams who believe that Terry Fontenot, the Falcons GM, is not bluffing by saying he's not releasing or trading Kirk Cousins. Maybe the owner just wants to eat the money for a full year, or maybe they want to wait to see if somebody gets injured in camp, and then that ups his value. Right now, he doesn't have a whole lot of value to trade Kirk Cousins. Like, you wouldn't get much of a draft pick for him. I mean, some teams are kind of like loosely crossing him off the list.
Well, so I know you've written and continue an ongoing article, Fred. So this is 5.0 veteran quarterback acquired Kirk Cousins, rookie quarterback drafted Cam Ward, and I know you'll update that. That was as of February 28th. The whole Kirk Cousins thing, I heard Terry Fontenot say that, and I have a hard time believing that he's going to be able to tell Arthur Blanks, the owner of the Falcons, we're going to hold out for a 4th or 5th or 6th round pick, and it's only going to cost you $10 million. That just doesn't add up.
Yeah, I mean, he has that bonus, I think, the 4th or 5th day after the league year starts. And there's no question the reason he's saying what he's doing and holding out, because he hopes somebody will come along. But Cousins has a no trade clause, so in effect, he can turn down anything and he can pick where he wants to go. I think he'll demand his release if it comes down to the trade. But they signed him to that $180 million deal, and I think $100 million is guaranteed. I go out with Jack Dovin, who he said there's no way in the world they keep a guy to be a backup quarterback. I think it's $37 million a year, when you count the $10 million bonus. Why would you do that when you could get Carson Wentz or you name the Daniel Joneses, all these guys, on a minimum type of a deal? So, but there's been no clarity. I mean, I had Derek Carr in there because it looked like they were going to let him go, and then they weren't going to let him go, and now they might let him go again. The same thing with Geno Smith. They're freeing up cap. Looks like they're committed now to him. And so you really don't know till they start making moves. But to me, what makes the most sense is that Kirk Cousins gets released, and the Browns would have to be banking on a relationship with what he did with Kevin Stefanski. He had 2 of his best years in Minnesota with Stefanski in this offense. So until there's any clarity, that's what we're sticking with. And the one thing I like about the Falcons blueprint is that they went all in free agency. I think, the Jets tried hard to get Cousins, and they might again, but they went really hard to get him, and they paid him $180 million, and then turned around and drafted Michael Penix with the 8th pick. The reason I have Cam Ward, until I hear otherwise, that the Browns can't get him because the Titans are taking him, that I believe he's the best quarterback in the draft. And you go get Cousins because you don't know what's going to happen in the draft. And if he's there, you take him anyway. You deal with the fallout later. And the Falcons are doing that now. And maybe they, will not release him. But I just feel that's the path. And if it becomes available, I think you gotta go for as high a value as you can. I don't know about Sam Darnold, if he's going to resign. I don't know if he's the answer. Any of those other guys, other than Derek Carr, I think most of them are just, kind of retreads. I mean, for the most part, they all are, to be honest with you. There's a reason they become available, because they're mid-30s or older, and their other team wants to move on from them.
Fred
Because
Greetham?
they don't feel they're worth it.
Fred Greetham, senior analyst for the Orange and Brown Report. Now going to take a quick time out. We'll head to the voicemail of Truth and Reason when we return. Stay with us.
Come back to go forward. Back to learning new things. Back to pursuing your dreams. Tri-C has flexible learning options to fit your life. And every year, more than 1,000 local companies provide Tri-C students with real-world learning. The right education can boost your lifetime earning power by hundreds of thousands of dollars. Start now with a college education you can afford. Tri-C, where futures begin.
We continue talking Browns with Fred Greetham, senior analyst for the Orange and Brown Report. Let's head to the voicemail of Truth and Reason.
Everybody wants to have the pick of Cam Warren, which I understand. Cam Warren is a great quarterback. I feel like he's a safe pick. But Shedeur isn't, like, they aren't bad quarterbacks. Those two are, in my opinion, equally the same because even though Shedeur took 48 sacks, Shedeur knows how to be efficient under duress. I need to know what a quarterback's going to do when he's in trouble. Shedeur Sanders is a confident dog that we need on this team.
So appreciate all of the voicemails. Fred, I get people I get the thought behind Sanders. I get the thought behind Ward. Earlier in the show, we heard from Hasselbeck talking about when you take a guy at the top end of the draft at number 1, elite skills are what you're looking for. You want an athlete. You want, and that's where Shedeur Sanders, even with the last name Sanders, is lacking. And I get that, and I agree with that.
Yeah, it's, I didn't pay too much attention to him. I didn't watch a lot of his games in college. I assumed the opposite. I assumed he was more of a running quarterback, more of a athletic. That was, and I'm not saying he's not athletic, but I would assume that was more of his game, more of a Lamar Jackson type quarterback, Jalen Milroe type quarterback, as opposed to an in the pocket, high completion passer where he's got the best completion percentage in college history, 74%. I mean, so I just feel like Ward is more of a sure shot. So, unfortunately for the Browns, if there's really only one franchise quarterback, you have the number 2 pick. Somebody is going to take them at number 1, whether it's the Titans or somebody's going to trade up to make sure they get them, whether it's the Giants or somebody else. If he's your guy, you have to go all in to get him, even if it's going from 2 to 1. But if you think Cam Ward and Shedeur Sanders are just about the same and you would be happy with either one of them, then you just sit there and you make the pick. That's where these guys study them year round. That's what they get paid for. I know there was a lot of smoke coming out about bad interviews and, we saw him with his hat on sideways, and things, but I don't think if the guy can play that's really going to dissuade people from drafting him. Now, here's where I have an issue. If you have Sanders, Jackson, Dart, Milroe, Show, whoever, put the name in there, all about the same, then I don't think you have to take one at 2. But you don't want to be in this position again at the top of the draft. If you like the guy, you take the guy. You don't say, well, he's ranked 15th on our board, we're not going to take him because he's not second. You take him because quarterbacks are always valued higher. I use this all the time, just my scenario, even with the trade with Garrett. Garrett's the best defensive player in the NFL, arguably. But if he was trading him straight up for a quarterback, how far down the list, if everything was the same, contract, everything, how far down would you go out of 32 before a team would give up their quarterback to get Myles Garrett? Would it be the 15th? I doubt it. You'd probably be in the 20s, and there'd probably be something like they're in their 30s and they're on the downside of their career because that's the overvalue of the quarterback. So the caveat is if you like Ward and Shedeur enough to take them and they separate from everybody else and you think they can play for you, you take them. If not, if they're all kind of the same, then you do look at the trade down or you take the next best non-quarterback, the top one you have on your list.
So we do know the Browns are hosting the top prospects today. Abdul Carter, Travis Hunter, and Shedeur Sanders will all be in Berea today. Tomorrow it will be Cam Ward, we have found out. So tomorrow is when Cam Ward will be there. I know you've written an article, Fred, takeaways and options for the Browns at pick number 2. post combine. Take us through that article. Those are the top 4 names that most are bandying about top of the draft. Those 4 that'll be in Berea today and tomorrow. Take us through the options with 2 as you see it for the Browns.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it's rocket science, but the Browns can always trade the pick. But if they stay and pick at number 2, I'm pretty convinced it'll be one of 4 guys. The 4 guys you're just talking about that visited, because, they have a needed quarterback. That's why Ward and Sanders are in the mix. And Abdul Carter, I do think, is the best overall player in the draft. And I think the other case is for Travis Hunter, because he hits 2 premium positions. And we know Andrew Berry's drafted a wide receiver every year in the draft. He's drafted a cornerback every year in the draft. And here's a chance to knock off 2 positions with 1 guy. So you can make a case, but Abdul Carter, I feel, the reason I wrote about him, because I do think that he's in consideration, especially if Ward's off the table and they don't like Sanders. If they're concerned with the foot stress reaction with Carter enough not to take him, then I think Hunter's in play. Again, if they don't want Sanders.
Fred Greetham, senior analyst for the Orange and Brown Report. Now I'm going to step aside, take one more timeout. Other side of the break, we'll talk a little free agency, which is right around the corner. Sports4CLE, be right back. Stay with us.
Action-packed excitement returns to Rocket Arena. The 2025 Mid-American Conference Basketball Tournament, presented by Credit Union One, returns March 12th through the 15th. Pulses will rise and hearts will race as the men and women of the MAC put it all on the line. Tickets are on sale now at rocketarena.com. MAC Tournament Basketball. Be there!
We continue talking Browns with Fred Greetham, senior analyst for the Orange and Brown Report. ESPN Cleveland's Tony Rizzo. His thoughts on the 2025 Browns.
I'm going to almost guarantee that the Browns team you thought we were going to get last year, you're going to get this year. The floor is 7-9. This isn't 2017. You're not going 1-31. You're going to be okay this year.
I should hope
Whether or not you're going to be in the playoffs, whether or not you're going to be that, I don't know. But I'm very confident in saying, with everybody's ass on the line in Berea, that you'll be around 7 wins no matter what. Chris, would you agree or not?
Riz, I got to see it.
You know what? You want me to just go total heel? I will. I will. Is that what everybody wants? Is that what all you guys want? You just want to see evil Rizzy?
No, it's not what I want.
Evil Rizzy. I don't know why. I'm not as down.
Fred, the reason I don't think Rizzo is down, because he looked at the roster and it's not a 3-win roster. You got historically bad quarterback play, and Kevin Stefanski and Andrew Berry know they have to fix the quarterback position immediately and get it to average it. At worst, it has to be at least average.
Yeah, I said it all last year, all off season, is that Deshaun Watson just had to be adequate or average, and that team could make the playoffs. He wasn't average or adequate. He was horrific. He was historically bad, and it resulted in a 1-6 start. Not everything was his fault, but the 1-6 start killed the season. When they continued to, say that they got to do better, no changes were made, and a lot of it was at the quarterback position. That's when the defense started going down. That's when the special teams started. It affected the whole team. I agree, this team is not as far off. Now, they might not have been as good as 11-6 2 years ago, but they weren't as bad as 3-14. You have adequate quarterback play. You're in every game. I have to think the defense is fixable. It was the number 1 defense 2 years ago. They were still, 11th, I think, last year. You get them up in the top 5 wherever that is, with a couple moves to shore it up, obviously counting Myles Garrett. And I think the team, you look at the 32 turnovers and they only took the ball away 12 times. I mean, that minus 20, minus 22, you're not going to win any games. And those are things you can fix. And those are things you can do defensively and just cleaning up the quarterback play. So, I agree. I'm not for sure they're going to make the playoffs, but that's why it's all about getting a quarterback that you can win games with, that can make a drive to win the game.
Yeah, I agree wholeheartedly. How active do you think Andrew Berry is in free agency? Beginning of the league years, early part of next week, and then we'll find out middle part of next week. And free agency and trade, how active do you think the Browns are?
Well, I think it's going to be extremely proactive. Last year, I was doing this. You talked about the 6-step series. I have it scheduled for, every day until Sunday because it starts Monday. And he preempted with a trade, I think, over the weekend for Jerry Jeudy. And he's done that. He did the trade for Amari Cooper. He did Zadarius Smith, Elijah Moore, especially a wide receiver. I can see him making a trade ahead of time. But I think that he's going to be extremely aggressive, and it's all about the quarterback. For what I've said over and over and over, they got to get this figured out. I think you can just sit around and get Mac Jones or Daniel Jones or Carson Wentz, but to get whoever is, if Sam Darnold is available, that's going to happen quick. If a trade or the Kirk Cousins or Derek Carr, that's going to be quick because there's a bunch of teams still looking for quarterbacks. So I see him being extremely active, especially in the quarterback position. But if there's a trade opportunity, and you've seen a couple guys become available, Tyler Lockett, DK Metcalf, I'm not saying that's who the Browns are going for, but if you remember last year, he went for Brandon Ayuk. And, because if it's just taking on a contract, they've shown they can restructure those. So I see them maybe in the trade going after a guy like that gets, that's available, or everything else's attention is to get the quarterback.
Fred Greetham, as always, great stuff. Appreciate the time and the insight. Thanks very much, Fred.
Thanks, Dave.
Fred Greetham, make sure you check him out. Orange and Brown Report. He is the senior analyst, make sure you go and check him out. He will have a continuing series on how the Browns can get things straightened around in 2025. We're going to step aside, take a quick timeout. Damon Wolfe from Dawgs by Nature, straight ahead. Stay with us. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program is dedicated to recognizing exceptional students, teachers, and schools throughout Ohio. Scan the QR code on screen to nominate students and teachers as Academic All-Stars and Teachers of the Month. They must be currently enrolled or teach in grades K through 12. Is your K through 12 school developing students' literacy skills to achieve success in reading? If so, you can nominate your school for the School of the Year. Students can win $100, teachers can win $500, and schools can win $2,500. Scan the QR code, fill out the forms, and nominate deserving students, teachers, and schools today. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program takes pride in honoring exceptional students, teachers, and schools across Ohio. Submit your nomination today. It's fun, fast, and free. We continue talking Browns on Sports4CLE. Andrew Whitworth, former NFL offensive lineman, with his take on the Myles Garrett situation with the Browns. This is from the Rich Eisen Show.
I think at the end of the day, I think Tomlin always says it, you never want prisoners, and so you want volunteers. And so I think that really, to me, it's one of those where I think Cleveland's got to be honest with themselves, and I wish this is how it worked, but what we've really provided him and really how things have gone here and decisions that have been made, I can understand an all-world football player saying, "Hey, man, I want the chance to go have success." And again, we have done things that continue to put us in a situation where we're not getting there. So you got to let him go, in my opinion. And what is that compensation? What does it look like? I just think when you do right by people and you're accountable and you say, hey, you know what, we can own up for our end of it, it ends up in a good thing for everybody. And so there's a chance here when you look at the Deshaun Watson situation and really where they're at contractually, unless you think you're a Super Bowl team, which I don't think anybody would say they are, why not use this as an opportunity of how else are we going to improve our roster? How else are we going to get out of the hole we've dug ourselves, but to acquire a lot of draft capital and move on? And so for Miles, I think it's digging your feet in and saying, you know what, if his heart really believes that he needs to go somewhere else and he's not going to be his best self every day showing up bitter in this building, then you know what, go forward with it. And for Cleveland, I think you got to really look at yourself and go, hey, maybe this is the only way we get out of the hole we've dug ourselves.
With that, let's welcome in Damon Wolfe from Dawgs by Nature. And Damon, I get what Andrew Whitworth is saying, and that's fine. But the deal the Browns make needs to be for the Browns at that point. And that means if it's the Patriots that want to give you late first-round picks from a contender, those are second-round picks in reality. Let's be honest. There's usually 15 players that have a first-round grade. If you're trading Myles Garrett, you better be getting more than late first-round picks for him.
Yeah, I agree. You know, Whitworth said a lot of stuff there that makes sense logically when you think about it, but I don't know that you know, the financial ramifications that would come from trading Myles would certainly be painful to go through for the Browns if they're really trying to put the best roster on the field this season. And then, you know, as far as the trade compensation, you're exactly 100% right on that. Those picks, those late first round picks are, I mean, mostly the equivalent of a second round pick at that point in time because, you know, all of the really quality players with first round grades have gone at that point. So in order for the Browns to do something, they would really have to be blown away by a deal, I think. Andrew Berry seems really dug in their position on the Browns side. And I really kind of picked up more of a sense of that during his interview at the Combine. But also, you know, Myles is dug in, and we'll see how the situation plays out. But ultimately, you know, there are a couple of key things coming up that I think that will, you know, could alter Myles' position on the situation. I mean, obviously, we have free agency coming up, and depending on what the Browns do there, that'll be interesting to see. And then, you know, also coming up soon here, the Cavs are going to be in the playoffs. I'm sure he's going to want to be seen at the Cavs games. And then also, you know, Myles is connected to that team, that locker room. And I don't know if he's really got the stomach to, you know, hold out an entire, you know, all throughout training camp.
Well, and the flip side of it is, remember, we know all about the term contract tolling from Deshaun Watson. So he has to play, I believe it's 7 games now, might be 8 because of the addition of a 17th game, in order for him not to be under contract for 2 more years to the Cleveland Browns. He can't just sit out for a year because the Browns he still has 2 years left on his contract with the Browns.
Yeah, it's you know, really we're in a standoff situation right here, and I think we're gonna, you know, kind of figure out who blinks first, and that will determine what happens with the situation.
So I know you wrote an article, and we had Mary Kay on, and you know, Mary Kay's article, cleveland.com, is what kind of got everybody talking. Browns are unlikely to sign Nick Chubb before he hits the open free agent market. Take us through the article you wrote and kind of your thoughts on it.
Yeah, the article was written after, you know, what Andrew Berry said at the Combine, and, you know, and he expects that Chubb will hit free agency. And, you know, that's not much of a surprise at this point. You know, I think for the Brown side of things, you know, they're going to let him go out there and test the market and see what kind of offer he gets. I think the Browns also want to get younger at the position. They want to get more dynamic of a running back in play. I mean, because of the knee injury that he came back from last season and the foot injury this year, it's really an unfortunate situation. I think from a culture standpoint and, a fan happiness standpoint, I think the Browns would like to have him back if that's possible. I just think that they're probably being a little more realistic and understanding that somebody's probably going to pay Nick, give him a better contract offer than what they're willing to.
Yeah, and that's the reason you let him hit free agency before you make a contract offer. So, you value him, you respect him. If somebody is willing to pay him more than you, Andrew Berry has a price in mind, and I'm sure if his offer exceeds that by too much, I don't think he goes that way. Free agency gets started beginning of next week. Quarterback is obviously the biggest need for this franchise. Other than that, what do you see as two, or it's got to be two because quarterbacks 1A, 1B, and 1C probably. So what is need number two on this roster?
So for me, it's the offensive line, especially offensive tackle. I don't think that now it's nice that you have Jack Conklin coming back. You can kind of pencil into DeJuan Jones, but his situation with his injury history really concerns me. He just had the knee scope again a couple weeks back, so you wonder how that will impact him. Not being able to be on it and actively working out. Also coming back from the broken fibula, so not exactly sure how much we're going to be able to count on him. So I think if the Browns make any kind of big move, which unfortunately there aren't a lot of great options out there, but I would expect them to invest heavily at the offensive tackle position as a percentage of their free agent dollars that they spend.
Yeah, that offense needs a huge upgrade. They need more playmakers, which probably relates to better line play. And I think if you upgrade the offense, the defense is probably a top 10 defense. But you keep putting them out there with 3 and outs, and any defense wears down. Another thing I'm kind of interested, observations from the Combine interviews. We had talked briefly at the Combine. What surprised you most with what you heard?
Well, I think for me, it was my first Combine being able to attend, and I walked away really valuing the opportunity to be in the same room with the position groups at the same time, all of them up at the podium. It really gave you an opportunity to kind of size the players up and compare them, compare their physique and all that kind of stuff. So that was kind of interesting to me. More so than the comments that they make answering the questions. I mean, obviously there are definite, one-liners that make good headlines and stuff like that are always said. But to me, it was really being able to size the guys up. And also, you can also tell, kind of what guys might be a fit for, Kevin Stefanski and Andrew Berry from a personality standpoint. And, they like guys with high level of awareness, smart guys, stuff like that. So a few players really stood out. Tyler Shuck, the quarterback from Louisville, I thought did a really good job at the podium. He broke down some X's and O's, and he just really seemed like a polished professional player that I could see the personality really meshing well with the coaching staff. Cam Ward, I mean, he stood out to me as kind of an alpha leader from the podium. He, handled the questions very well and seems like the kind of leader that you would really like to have leading your locker room. And, of course, there were multiple other guys that stood out. Azaria Thomas was really impressive. Jalen Knoll, but some of those guys really improved their case in that room.
Damon Wolfe from Dawgs by Nature now. I can step aside, take a quick time out. Other side of the break, we'll talk a little bit about running backs in this draft. Sports4CLE, be right back. Stay with us. Full Court Action is a half hour devoted exclusively to men's and women's basketball from across the Mid-American Conference. Hello, everybody. I'm Dave Bacon. Join me at 6:30 Tuesday nights and we'll meet the coaches and players from the Mid-American Conference who are making an impact in basketball. Full Court Action will spotlight the top plays and performances from all across the Mid-American Conference with some historical action as well. Catch Full Court Action Tuesday nights at 6:30 on Rock Entertainment Sports Network. We continue talking Browns with Damon Wolfe from Dawgs by Nature. Brian Baldinger, former offensive lineman, talking about his favorite running backs in this draft class to watch.
I counted 13 running backs that ran in the 4.4s or better, and one of those was Travion Henderson from Ohio State. And the thing that's interesting about Travion, when you watched him, I mean, yeah, he's going to break this and bust his 4.43 40. I mean, he is an explosive, really tightly wound athlete. He's a good pass protector. You saw him in Texas in the playoff game, taking that screen pass right before the half for 75 yards. He finished that. The thing that's interesting to me, Tom, is, you know, he only had 144 touches this year and averaged over 7 yards a carry. He split the time with Quinshon Judkins. So, like, he's not a lot of wear and tear, even though he's been in the program for 4 full years. And the other guy that I would say you got to take a look at is Ollie Gordon from Oklahoma State. Now, he's 226 pounds. He's a factor back. 2 years ago, 2023, when the Cowboys had a real quarterback, he ran for over 1,700 yards. I mean, he was unbelievable. Now, he went backwards some this year because they just really stacked the box on him. But this guy is 226. He ran a 4.6. I think probably can run a little bit faster. But, I mean, the measurables are all there. The feet, the footwork, it's all there. I think if you want the big back, and I don't know who does it, if you want that big back, Ollie Gordon might be a guy that you can find, you know, not in the first round, but later on because there's such great depth at this running back position.
And Damon, Gordon is a guy, at the beginning of the year, he was one of the favorites to win the Heisman based on what he did 2 years ago. That's a guy I'd listen out for in the 5th or 6th round with Andrew Berry because I tend to agree with Baldinger. I think he suffered from what he had around him at Oklahoma State.
Yeah, for sure. Ollie Gordon's definitely an interesting prospect, running back. There are questions about the weight that he played at this year in comparison to last year in 2023. So it'll be interesting to see, you know, how that plays out and what weight he kind of settles in at and what weight a potential team would want him to play at. But he is, what really stood out to me about him, he is really, he's lengthy. He's very tall for a running back. But yeah, there's a lot there to like when you turn on his tape. He can do a lot out of the backfield for a team.
When you look at the running backs, I kind of want the Browns to take one in the 2nd or 3rd because I want them to get a higher end, you know, and I realize it's deep. But again, I keep going back to they need playmakers on the offensive side of the ball.
Yeah, absolutely. I think they should take one early, and I would also be interested in them taking one later. And, you know, I think also because of the depth of the class, there's going to be some quality undrafted free agents as well. But they might just want to get ahead of that with how many picks that they actually have. They've got, you know, 12 picks this year. I don't expect them to use all of those draft picks, but if they were to, you know, throw one at a running back late in the 6th or 7th round to kind of complement the skill sets of the guy that they take early, that would be something that would certainly interest me. Guys at the top that I really like, I mean, we're not going to be in the Ashton Genty area, and probably not Amarion Hampton either. He's a really dynamic running back. He's everything you want in the position as far as explosion and that kind of stuff. But I do really like the Iowa running back, Caleb Johnson. You know, watching that guy, he really does a nice job of being patient and setting up his blocks and knows when to hit the hole. And his feet are really tremendous. Has a lot of great lateral skills and can get north and south in a hurry. He's somebody that I would love for the Browns to have as their featured running back moving forward.
All right, so I know you wrote another article, 4 players who should be rising on the Browns draft board relative to day 2. And we'll take a look at them. You've got an edge rusher from Boston College, Ezeranko. Jalen Noel is a guy that a lot of people from Iowa State like. Wilson, a center from Georgia. Mason Taylor, tight end from LSU. If which of those really kind of jump out to you as someone you think could end up having a big impact?
So I really like Azar Raku from Boston College, the defensive end. I think he's going to be a starter in the league sooner rather than later and probably have an impact on a defense. His production at Boston College was really great. He's twitchy. He's really bendy, so he can get around offensive tackles, and that was kind of his specialty there. Explosive as well, tested really nice. So he would be ideal if the Browns, were to take Cam Ward at number 2, and then if they could come back and get him at 33. I think though the secret's out of the bag on him though, so he might go late first round, and I don't expect him to possibly be there at 33. I also really like Jalen Noel, the wide receiver from Iowa State. He's been a guy, one of my favorite players to watch during this draft cycle. He can play inside and outside. He tested really well. He ran a 4.39, and he is just really great. He's explosive off the line of scrimmage, and then he's really good at setting up his routes and running routes and creating separation. And he plays a lot bigger than his size would indicate. So I really see him as, the potential to be a day one starter, as kind of like in the slot as a number 3 wide receiver in the Browns system, and would be a upgrade over Elijah Moore, in my opinion.
All right. Before I let you go, Tim Hasselbeck, former quarterback, now on ESPN, on SportsCenter, talking about Shedeur Sanders and his fit with the Browns.
He is a polished passer, and look, he's coming from, Pat Shurmur coaching him at Colorado, and so the similarities in terms of what he did at Colorado and some of the things that they would do in Cleveland match. I also think he's kind of ready from a mental perspective. He's a good decision maker and he's accurate. My concern with Shedeur would always be this. At the top of round 1, it's usually reserved for the elite of the elite in terms of, athleticism. And I just don't think that he's there yet, either, in terms of arm ability, as well as just, the type of athlete that he is. I think sometimes it can be misleading because his father's Deion Sanders, but I think it's rarefied air when you're talking about quarterbacks at the top of the round 1 physically. I'm just not sure that he fits that. At the same time, Cleveland is desperate. And I do think he probably would play above his physical ability in Cleveland.
So this is something else to take a look at relative to his accuracy. And he's the second most accurate quarterback and Corey Kinnan has tweeted this, over the last 3 years that he's tweeted. The top was Jaden Daniels. So there is that accuracy piece, but I would also say I agree 100% with Hasselbeck's assertion. If you're taking a guy at number 2, you need freakishly good skills, and you do not want to take somebody at 2 that feels like a desperation pick.
Yeah, I love Corey's work that he does charting quarterbacks, and I do see the accuracy there with Sanders, and everything that Hasselbeck just said there is pretty spot on in my opinion as well. He's definitely a guy that I think can be a starter in the league, and it's just like, what is his exact ceiling? And I think that if you were to draft that at number 2, you're really costing yourself an opportunity to miss out on a special player like an Abdul Carter if he were to be there. So I don't necessarily know, and there's been some reporting that coming out of the combine about how Sanders did in his interviews and stuff like that. So I'm coming around to the position that it's quite possible he falls out of the top 10, and then I don't know from there what team is going to take him. I know you get to Pittsburgh at 21 and they have a big need at quarterback, but it would probably be a sweepstakes of teams trying to trade back into the first round somewhere at a position to try to take him.
Yeah, I'm with you, and I get it. I don't argue with that line of thinking even a little. I've kind of moved towards Cam Ward or Abdul Carter. You know, I'm with you. I think those are 1 and 2 that kind of in that order. If Cam Ward's there, I think you take Cam Ward. Otherwise, I think you take Abdul Carter, would be my thought. Damon Wolfe, as always, great stuff. Appreciate the time and the insight. Thanks very much, Damon.
No problem, Dave. Really appreciate it.
Damon Wolfe, make sure you check him out. Always really good stuff, Dawgs by Nature. That's going to do it for this edition of Sports for CLE. We will see you back here tomorrow at 4 o'clock. Have a great night, everybody. See you tomorrow at 4 on Sports for CLE.